Let's come to one of the most candid chapters in your book, which is the relationship between Farooq Abdullah and his son Omar Abdullah. Right now,
Hmm.
when we look at this chapter, it's very clear that you are speaking as Farooq's guy, and you're not that kind to Omar Abdullah. Before I come to the specifics, would you concede that you're a bit harsh on Omar?
I don't think so. No, no, no. There have been periods. I've seen. I don't want to say boy because he's the chief minister now, but I've seen him since the time he was head boy in Sanaa. That's when I first came across him, and because our daughter was also in Sanaa, and we had gone for their whatever the big day,
Hmm.
and that's when I first met Omar. He was in school. So I've seen, the growing of Omar Abdullah. What I will say is that he's not his father.
Yeah, so
He is not.
can I stop you there, because you refer to his head boy years at Sanar. One of the
Yeah.
lines that leaps out from the chapter is you
Hmm.
say Farooq Abdullah is 100% Indian and 100% Kashmiri, and
Hmm.
Omar Abdullah is 100% Indian, 50% Kashmiri, and 50% still head boy of Sanar.
Hmm.
Explain this.
He's very correct. That's what you learn in a public school. That you have to be correct. You have to be straight. You have to be honest. You have to own up. Now Farooq is none of that. So that's what the implication is. Also, quite often it's been said, various things have been said about Omar. Not that they haven't been said about Farooq. That Omar is half English and Omar is you know he's all the time on his mobile, or he's more dependent on security. All those things are there.
Hmm.
But I would say, as a human being, Omar is a first class human being. There's no doubt about it in my mind. The thing is that as a politician, he's not half his father, and I don't think he will ever be. In my thinking, and most Kashmiris will not agree with me, but I think they need to introspect. And I think ultimately, when history is written, I think Dr. Farooq Abdullah is a bigger person than his father,
Than his son, you mean?
the Sheikh.
You're saying Farooq Abdullah is a bigger person than Sheikh Abdullah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Most people will not agree with me, but he's had to go through very difficult times. Sheikh spent a lot of time in jail, no doubt, but he always had the support first of the Mahatma and then of Panditji. And it was Pandit Nehru who ultimately got fed up with that Kashmir conspiracy case, and he said, enough is enough. I want the Sheikh out. And and can you imagine? Not only was the Sheikh out, he went and stayed with Pandit Nehru in the Prime Minister's house.
Hmm. But you know
Could
what
that
also
happen
comes.
today?
No, but you know what also emerges in your chapter on Farooq Abdullah and his son Omar is a kind of, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say competitiveness. You basically talk about, and there's a line in there. You say Farooq Abdullah was torn between his love for Kashmir and his love
Hmm.
for his son, right?
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
you also talk about how at an earlier point Omar Abdullah did not spoke about his grandfather, but did not speak about his father, and that would prove to be counterproductive for him. That's back in
Yeah,
the
I'm
day,
talking. Yeah, I was talking
2002.
about the 2002 election. Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
It was
But
it was counterproductive.
right, but over the years, and I remember this well, in 2008, there was this
Hmm.
sense that Omar Abdullah was going to be the face of the chief minister's post, and Farooq Abdullah publicly declared his interest in that seat. Now, it didn't happen. Omar becomes chief minister,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I remember that. I
yeah,
remember it was an interview with you when he said the night before the
that's right.
decision was taken.
That's
He
right.
said, "Who told you I'm going to be prime minister? I'm going to be chief minister." Now I'll tell you
Yes.
something else.
No, but
You
hang on,
know
hang on,
this.
hang on, hang on, hang on. I
Okay, okay,
remember,
okay.
I remember this moment very well. It was by the Nagin Lake. We were doing a program, and Farooq
Yeah.
Abdullah comes there, and I say to him, Farooq Saab, now are you all set for Omar to become the chief minister? And he publicly says, no. Why? I will be chief minister. And we were all taken aback. The national conference was taken aback, and that was the first time that there was the sense that there was some tension between Omar and Farooq. It may not exist today, over Farooq Abdullah feeling like he was, in a way, not given the opportunity to be chief minister again.
Again, no, that was the first time.
No, I'm saying pehle he had been chief minister. He wanted to be chief minister again, and that didn't happen for him. So, would you concede this competitiveness between father and son? How would you characterize it?
You see, what was going on actually in 2008, when I'm saying going on, I mean in the household, I really wouldn't know. But I can tell you one thing about 2008, because, I follow Kashmir
Yeah.
all the time, that in 2008, it was very clear that Kashmir wanted Umar Abdullah as chief minister. And there are various reasons for that. I don't want to go into that. But Farooq understood that. So he was not going to challenge that. What he said to you, he said to you, it's on the spur of the moment, whatever the reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I tell you about now, even now, 2024, Farooq said to me at least 3 or 4 times that I am going to be chief minister. I want to be chief minister. I'm going to be chief minister.
This
and
time,
that is why,
this time in 2024.
Absolutely. And that is why Omar Abdullah contested the parliament election from Baramulla. Farooq was hoping Umar will go to parliament and he would become chief minister. But Umar lost that election. And then, after the assembly elections, the father didn't again want to be called a spoil sport. So he stepped back. And I can tell you, since Omar Abdullah's swearing in, since the time he's become chief minister, the father has become much more protective of his son, much more loving of his son, even glorifies him now, if you listen carefully. And so things are changing.
Hang on.
And
so I'm confused.
No,
You are
there's
saying,
no confusion.
I'm confused. Help me here. 2008,
yeah,
I remember well, because Farooq said it to me that he wants to be
yeah,
CM. He doesn't become
yeah.
CM, Omar becomes CM. You are saying in 2024 assembly elections, Omar Abdullah was expected, Farooq thought, to go to parliament, and
Absolutely.
Farooq Abdullah told you that he wanted to be chief minister.
3, 4 times he told me, I'm going to be chief minister. There was no doubt about. I mean,
so why didn't it happen? Why didn't it happen?
It's staring in the face why it didn't happen, because Omar lost that parliament seat. So Omar was not going to parliament. So he had to be accommodated in Srinagar as chief minister.
So you're saying if Engineer Rashid had not defeated Omar Abdullah,
Absolutely.
if Omar Abdullah had been member of parliament from Baramulla, Farooq Abdullah would have been chief minister. Because Omar lost his seat, Farooq sacrificed or his desire to make way for his son.
That's right. That's right. And that is why you find today, whatever he might say or not say, he is much, much more protective of his son. He's much, much more supportive of his son. He's much, much more loving of his son. And if I might add, even glorifies him now.
But there's another sentence in your book where I think you quote either Ashok Bhan or a national conference leader, and you say Farooq Saab's big dream was to be buried as chief minister next to Sher Kashmir, right? And that dream did not come. That dream didn't come through.
No, that dream didn't come through. That's what Ashok Bhan said to me, and I've quoted it because that's exactly what Dr. Saab was telling me. Not why he wanted to be buried. I don't think he's ready to be buried just now, but what he was saying was that I want to be chief minister. I will be chief minister.
So that sentence in your book, torn between his love for Kashmir and his love for his son, clearly his love
Yeah.
for his son prevailed.
Yeah. And now it's big time. There is also a sentence. I don't know if it's in Father and Son or if it's in the last chapter, The Lion in Winter, that now such is the intensity of his love for his son that it amounts to glorification now. There is an intensity about it. There's no doubt about it. I've given an example in that book, for instance, I don't want to say what the reason was, but he was expected here in November last year, at the end of November. And a couple of days before that, I reminded him, I said, sir, you're coming to Delhi. He said, no, I'm not. I've got more important things to do. So, when Farooq says something, you can't question him. And then he explained to me, he said, I'm going on Umrah with my son. And that is more important than coming to Delhi.
So would it be fair to say that it was a relationship with some tension and that tension is now a thing of the past?
There is no tension. No, I don't see any tension now.
No, earlier, not now. Earlier, back in the day, maybe 2002 when Omar loses, when Omar is still trying to find his feet as a politician, when Farooq still has aspiration to be chief minister. I mean, do you think these are things they debate openly, like who's going to be chief minister? Like, how does it work?
No, I don't think they debate it openly. Farooq is Farooq. Farooq is the boss. What I can say about the relationship in the family is that what Umar has thought about his father, I'm not 100% sure about. But Farooq has been an extremely, extremely good father, notwithstanding anything else that anyone might say. He's always been a good father. And he's been a good husband.
You have a very peculiar sentence in the book. I don't know how many people will notice it, but I picked it up.
Well,
you said,
am I not peculiar?
You are indeed. You are indeed. But even by your standards, this is a peculiar sentence.
Tell me.
Delhi and Islamabad both prefer Omar to Farooq. This is a sentence in your book.
Yeah, of course.
Can you explain what this means and why Islamabad prefers Omar to Farooq? I mean, of course, you're not suggesting that Omar is partial to the Pakistanis. I should clarify.
No.
I just want to clarify. I just want to clarify that that's not what the sentence means. But what does
absolutely not
mean? What does this sentence mean?
You see, if you remember 2002, the trick in Delhi was to get Farooq out of Kashmir and send Umar to Kashmir as chief minister. That is what Vajpayee wanted, desperately wanted. Now, again, that whole scheme failed because Umar lost his election. If Umar had not lost his election, there may have been other possibilities.
I mean, this sounds like history repeating itself, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. It is in a sense, but not really that kind of history. So Delhi has always found it, for some peculiar reason, much easier dealing with Umar. And the reason actually not peculiar, it's very obvious. Farooq is not easy to deal with. It takes a long, long time to be able to fathom him, to be able to understand him. And he doesn't let you understand him. That's the other bigness of the man, you can say. It's not easy. Umar is simple, it's straight. You get what you see. So that is why, and the Pakis, there's a High Commissioner, I've quoted him without mentioning his name. There's a Pakistan High Commissioner. I said, why are you guys so anti-Farooq? And he said, to be honest, we find him unmanageable. So there's the answer. Delhi finds him unmanageable, so naturally Islamabad finds him even more unmanageable. He's not easy to manage and he doesn't like being managed.
But Omar is not easy to be managed. Omar is his own person in a very different kind of way. He may be very correct, he may be very contained compared to his much more flamboyant father, but he's not exactly manageable. What does, I mean, they're just very different
Well,
personas.
they are different, but what I'm trying to say is that Omar is more amiable, he's more pliable, let me put it like this. Now let me take you back to the NDA government. You know, Omar was Minister of State for Commerce, and Vajpayee was very impressed with him. So he made him Minister of State for External Affairs. He was even more impressed with him. So he felt, this guy is great. He's wonderful. Farooq, you don't understand. You can't understand. You don't know what he's going to say. And he doesn't let you understand. So that's the whole issue. That's the problem. But I think in all this, the way Delhi has treated Dr. Farooq, they missed out on a huge lot. Because there is no bigger leader, not only in Kashmir, but in India, I would say, than Dr. Farooq Abdullah.
Let's look at one of those big disappointments for Farooq Abdullah himself, not becoming vice president. He saw that as a big betrayal. He understood that when Abdul Kalam becomes president, it is not possible for two people.
No, he understood it before. He understood it before that. He's far too smart. You know, I've told you that story about May that year when he summoned me to his office, and he's never done that. It was actually the summons. Whenever we met, it was always at his house. But that day I was summoned to his office, and he sat me across his desk and said, "Tell me, are they going to make me vice president?" I said, "Of course they are." He said, "No, they won't." I said, "You've spoken to all of them, and all of them have assured you." He said, "Yes, I have, but I don't trust any of them." And he was right. He was right. But you know, I'll tell you something. Talking of betrayals, let me tell you something. The bigger betrayal for him was actually 84. Indira Gandhi letting him down. You know, the Gandhis and the Gandhis and the Abdullahs have had a very close relationship. It's been love-hate, but it's been a very close relationship. And actually, when Dr. Saab became Chief Minister, again, it was Indira's choice. She suggested to the Sheikh that, why don't you appoint your son as your successor? She wanted him. And yet, so when she got him dismissed, and you know the governor refused to do it, so they had to change the governor. And Farooq regarded that betrayal. Of course, he says that, you know, in the book, he's written a book or dictated a book called My Dismissal, in which he says, my family let me down. No, it was not the family. The betrayal happened in Delhi.
Now, one of the criticisms of Farooq Abdullah, and you don't have any criticisms, serious criticisms that I came across in the book, but you acknowledge that one of the criticisms for Farooq Saab is that he's non-serious. He's non-serious, right? And there are all these sort of now almost iconic stories, riding pillion with Shabana Azmi, you know, dancing, picking up a flute and playing it, whatever, being a, some would say zindadil, some would say flamboyant, some would say non-serious politician. How do you do write about the Shabana Azmi story in your book? What is the story there? Let's set the record straight. What is that story about?
But you've called him Zindadil, haven't you?
I have. But I'm saying,
so you know what he is. You know, the thing is, firstly, that Shabana Azmi story goes back a long, long time. And the real story there is that both Dr. Farooq and Shabana happened to be in Gulmarg at the same time. And she saw that motorcycle there, and she said, why can't I have a ride on it? And Farooq, being Farooq, said, sure, I'll take you for a spin. That's all there was to it. You know? But it's very wrong to say that Farooq is non-serious. He is very, very serious about his politics. The thing with Farooq is, he's very open about everything, you know?
Yeah.
Unlike most of our politicians, he's very, very plain, very there. You know, okay. There's more to life than politics. There's other things also. He has that great obsession with golf. He must play golf. Even when I went to see him in 2020 when he was under house arrest, he said, "How are you?" I said, "How are you, sir?" He said, "I'm fine. Don't you see me? I'm okay." But he was not fine. And the only thing he said, "Yeah, I missed golf." And sure enough, soon after he was released, he was back to golf. And even today, at this age, he still plays golf.
Hmm. But let's
But
end
he
with
won't.
your.
He at this age, he doesn't sing and dance as much as he did in the past.
Yeah, because my memory of Farooq Abdullah is always that at any gathering he is the life of the party. He's on his feet
He is. He
dancing.
is. He is.
You
He
play
is. He
a
is.
song. I mean, I remember
And
like
now,
evenings
now, now,
when
now,
he
I'll
when
tell you
he did,
something.
when he did Wiggle for Wiggle with Ranveer Singh, the actor. Like I remember introducing both of them on a stage, and Farooq outdanced Ranveer Singh.
Yeah, he could outdance anybody. But
Uh,
today there is also the Umar influence. Let me tell you that in
what do you
many
mean?
things, Umar holds him back. That now, look, let me do it my way. And Farooq is that kind of father who would always say, please do it your way. Your way will always be better than mine.
Hmm. But it's also a function of age, maybe.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Of
Hmm.
course it is.
Let's let's
Have you ever found similarities between Farooq and me?
Quite a lot, actually. But I don't think if Farooq has mellowed, I don't think you have. I
I
don't think
don't
you've
need to
mellowed.
mellow. I'm not Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir.
That's right.
Why should I
That's right.
mellow? And
That's right.
it's more than 20 years ago that I left government. So why should I mellow now at my age?